Harlow Avery didn't expect to drop a three-tiered wedding cake onto a billionaire's custom Italian loafers, but that's exactly how she met Vance Monroe. "Move," she yelled as she stumbled through the country club's swinging kitchen door, arms wobbling under the weight of the elaborate cake. But the tall man in a dark suit didn't move. The cake slid, her heel twisted, and 3 layers of buttercream and edible gold collapsed onto the most expensive shoes she'd ever seen. There was a pause. Then a low voice said, "Well, that's one way to make an entrance." She looked up, horrified. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and way too calm for someone now covered in frosting. His dark hair was effortlessly styled, his jaw sharp enough to cut diamonds, and his eyes, those were even worse, staring at her like she'd just landed from another planet. "I'm so sorry," she gasped, grabbing handfuls of napkins from the dessert table. "I swear I didn't mean you must be Harlow," he interrupted, brushing fondant off his sleeve. She froze. "How do you know my name?" Vance gestured toward the ballroom. "You're the wedding planner's assistant, right? The one helping with my best friend's wedding." Her stomach dropped. "You're the groom's friend," he nodded, lips twitching into something vaguely amused. "Vance Monroe, best man. Also, apparently, your first casualty of the night." She wanted to crawl under the table. "Again, I am so sorry. This was supposed to go to the tasting room. I didn't realize someone would be just standing there." He stepped forward and gently took the napkins from her hands. "It's just cake." "Relax." But nothing about him said relaxed. His suit looked like it cost more than her entire monthly rent. His watch gleamed, and when he moved, people stepped aside. Still, she tried to smile. "Well, you're being awfully cool about it." Most guys would have started yelling. "I've seen worse," he said. "Last week, a horse sneezed on me during a polo match." She blinked. "Wait, you play polo?" He gave a casual shrug. "Sometimes, for charity, of course." Before she could respond, a woman in a headset appeared behind her. "Harlow, you were supposed to have the cake sample in the tasting suite 10 minutes ago. What happened?" Harlow turned red. There was a slight frosting incident." Vance spoke before the woman could explode. "Entirely my fault. I got in the way." The woman glanced between them, clearly unconvinced, but nodded and disappeared back into the ballroom. Harlow exhaled. "Thank you, seriously." "You're welcome," he said, then tilted his head. "Tell you what, let me buy you a drink tonight as an apology." She stared at him. "You want to buy me a drink after I ruined your shoes?" He grinned. "Exactly." The drink turned into 2. They sat at the edge of the venue's rooftop bar, city lights glittering below. She learned he was from New York but had grown up in Connecticut. He ran a firm that invested in green energy startups. And yes, he'd been a billionaire since 32. He learned she was originally from Portland, had moved to LA last year to chase a fresh start, and only took this wedding assistant gig as a favor to her cousin Quinn, the actual wedding planner. "It's temporary," she said, sipping her cocktail. "I'm trying to figure out what I really want next." He leaned closer. "What do you want?" She hesitated. "Something that feels like it matters, something that's mine." Vance's eyes didn't leave hers. "I get that." The air changed. She felt it, that low, thrumming tension, the kind that made your skin warm and your pulse quicken. She looked away first. "I should probably head back down," she said. "There's still a lot to prep before the rehearsal tomorrow." He nodded, but his voice was quiet. "I'll see you around, Harlow." And she wasn't sure if it was the way he said her name or the way his eyes lingered just a moment too long, but something about it made her heart skip. Over the next week, she saw him everywhere. Every time she turned around at the venue, he was there, helping the groom with tux fittings, managing last-minute travel details, somehow always nearby when she was juggling flower deliveries or flipping through seating charts. And every time, he made her laugh, teased her about her overstuffed planner, brought her a coffee exactly the way she liked it, listened when she muttered under her breath about centerpieces being delivered in the wrong shade of ivory. "You know this isn't your job, right?" she said once, after he helped her carry 20 floral arrangements into the ballroom. "I like being useful," he said. "Don't billionaires have, like, assistants for this?" "I do," he said. But she's not nearly as fun to argue about peonies with. She rolled her eyes but couldn't stop smiling. There was something about him, sure, he was polished and powerful, but he didn't act like he was above anything. He listened, laughed, noticed things, and she hated that she noticed him too. Because this wasn't supposed to happen. She was supposed to be behind the scenes. This wasn't her love story, it was someone else's wedding. But then came the rehearsal dinner. The ballroom was candlelit, golden, and glittering. Harlow wore a simple navy dress she'd borrowed from her cousin. She'd planned to slip in, check on the caterers, and slip out, but Vance found her before she even made it to the kitchen. "You clean up nice," he said, eyes sweeping over her. "Didn't know you owned anything that didn't have pen stains," she laughed. "This isn't mine, I borrowed it." "Still smells like Quinn's lavender perfume. Still," he said, stepping closer. "You look beautiful," her heart stuttered. "Thanks," he held out a hand. "Dance with me," she hesitated. "This is your best friend's night." He's too busy showing off the ring he got her to notice anything. "Come on, one dance." She took his hand, they danced, and in the middle of the soft music, the laughter, the candlelight, something shifted. His hand rested on her waist. Her fingers curled against his shoulder, their eyes locked. And suddenly, it didn't feel like she was helping plan someone else's wedding. It felt like her heart was doing something really dangerous. He leaned in, voice low in her ear. "Tell me you feel this too." She didn't answer, because she did, and it scared her more than anything. "Harlow, can you please explain why the mother of the bride is threatening to cancel the string quartet?" Quinn's voice was sharp as she intercepted Harlow in the hallway outside the bridal suite, clipboard clutched like a weapon. Harlow sighed, pulling her hair into a loose twist as she adjusted the ribbon on the bridesmaids' gift bags. "She wants them to play Moon River during the cocktail hour. They said it's not in their repertoire." Quinn blinked. "It's a classic." "How do they not know Moon River? Their lead violinist called it passé." Harlow raised an eyebrow. "Her word, not mine," Quinn groaned. "Fix it. Please. I'll try bribing them with the champagne we're hiding for post-ceremony emergencies, and remind them they're not Elton John at the Grammys." Quinn turned and disappeared down the hall before Harlow could respond. Harlow made her way back to the garden where the musicians were setting up. She crouched beside the trio, quietly negotiating while handing them a glass bottle of something sparkling and French. By the time she stood again, Moon River was softly floating into the air. "You're terrifyingly persuasive," Vance's voice came from behind her. She didn't turn. "I prefer the term resourceful." "Impressive either way," he said, stepping closer. "I've been looking for you." Harlow finally looked at him. He wasn't in his usual suit. Today he wore a tailored navy jacket over an open-collared white shirt. Effortlessly elegant. "Of course." "Let me guess," she said. "You need me to rescue another best man speech from ending in a nervous breakdown?" "No," he said, then glanced at the musicians. "Though if you ever decide to leave weddings behind, I'd hire you in a second." "To do what?" "Strong-arm pretentious violinists into playing old movie ballads. To run my acquisition teams," he said, serious now. "You're good with people, you make things happen." "That's rare," she laughed, caught off guard. "I'm not exactly looking for a corporate pivot. Just think about it." "I'm trying not to think at all today," she said. "Too much depends on everything going smoothly." He was quiet for a moment. "How are you really doing right now?" She blinked. "What do you mean?" "You don't stop moving. I've been watching you. Always fixing, solving, covering for someone, but I haven't seen you breathe once in the last 48 hours. She hesitated. "It's not my wedding." "It's not about me." "That doesn't mean you don't get to exist inside of it." Harlow looked away. "Existing is easier when no one's expecting you to be perfect." "I'm not." She turned back to him then, surprised by the softness in his voice. His expression had shifted, no longer teasing, just quietly present. "Someone should ask you how you're doing," he said. "So I'm asking." Harlow felt the words settle in a place she didn't realize had been aching. She nodded once, barely. "I'll let you know once the cake makes it through the ceremony intact." "Deal," he said, his eyes lingering on hers a beat longer than necessary. Then he stepped away, giving her space without pulling away entirely. The ceremony began just as the sun dipped below the tree line, casting warm light across the garden. Harlow stood near the entrance, headset buzzing, clipboard in hand, coordinating the final cues. Vance took his place beside the groom, calm and composed. When the music shifted and the bride appeared, everyone turned. But Vance's gaze flicked toward Harlow instead, just for a second. She felt it like a current beneath her skin. After the vows, the kiss, and the applause, the guests began to drift toward the cocktail terrace. Harlow was checking the lighting on the path when Vance reappeared. "You disappeared again," he said. "I'm working," she replied, not looking up. "Come with me," she frowned. "Vance, I can't just 15 minutes, he said. "That's all I'm asking." She hesitated. Then, against every rule she'd built for herself this week, she followed him. He led her past the terrace, through a side gate she hadn't noticed before, and down a narrow trail that curved along the edge of the vineyard. At the end was a small open clearing with a single wooden bench and a view that stole her breath. The sun had sunk completely now, painting the distant hills in twilight gold. "I found this yesterday," he said. "Thought you might need somewhere quiet." She sank onto the bench beside him, silent for a while, then, softly, "You're not what I expected. Neither are you." They sat in companionable quiet for a moment, the hum of distant music floating up from the party. "I keep telling myself this is temporary," she said finally. "That I'll go back to real life after this, but I don't even know what real life is supposed to look like anymore." "Maybe that's not a bad thing," he said, "starting over without a script. You say that like it's easy. It's not." "But it's honest." She looked at him then, really looked. "You're not just here for the wedding," she said. "No, why did you come?" He didn't answer right away. "I needed to step out of the noise, out of what people expect from me. This helping with the wedding, being here, it's the first time in a long time I've done something without a motive." She nodded slowly. "That makes two of us." He reached for her hand then, gently, like he was asking permission, and she didn't pull away. Back at the venue, the reception had begun. Lights strung through the trees glowed like stars. The music swelled. Laughter echoed. But in the quiet of that hidden clearing, Harlow realized something she hadn't dared admit until now. She wasn't just falling for him, she already had. The morning after the wedding, the sun poured through the glass windows of the cliffside villa where Harlow had been staying with the rest of the event staff. She stood barefoot in the kitchen, gripping a mug of lukewarm coffee, still in the oversized hoodie she'd slept in. Her body ached in places she didn't know could ache, and her voice was hoarse from directing vendors until midnight. But none of that explained the knot in her stomach. She hadn't seen Vance since they returned from the clearing, and she hadn't expected to feel so hollow. Quinn burst through the back door, her hands full of floral arrangements. "They're giving away the centerpieces," she said breathlessly. "Want one?" Harlow blinked. Sure." Quinn dropped a vase on the counter and squinted at her. "You okay?" "Yeah," Harlow said too quickly. "Just tired." Quinn tilted her head. "You didn't seem tired last night when you slipped off with Vance Monroe for half an hour." Harlow's spine stiffened. "It wasn't like that." Quinn raised an eyebrow. "Oh, we just talked." "Harlow, he left the reception before dessert. You vanished." Then he turned up at sunrise, helping the staff tear down the tent like some kind of tuxedoed saint. "And now you're pretending that's normal?" Harlow stared at her. "I didn't know he helped with tear down." "Because you were already gone," Quinn said. "Which is unlike you." Harlow set her mug down, voice low. "I needed to think," Quinn softened, "about him, about everything." She didn't elaborate, she didn't need to. Because what she'd felt last night sitting beside him in that quiet clearing, his hand warm in hers, wasn't something she could explain. It wasn't just attraction, it was recognition, and that terrified her. Later that afternoon, she found herself alone at the vineyard's old stone chapel, clearing leftover programs from the pews. She didn't hear the door open behind her. "I was starting to think you disappeared." She turned. Vance stood in the doorway, sleeves rolled, jacket slung loosely over his shoulder. His eyes searched hers, not with the usual amusement but with something quieter, more careful. "I thought you left," she said. "I was going to," he said, "but I couldn't." She didn't speak. He stepped closer. "I know what you're doing. I've done it too, pulling back before it gets real." "It's not about pulling back," she said. "It's about knowing when something's impossible." He crossed the room in 3 strides. "Why would this be impossible?" "Because you live in a world I only visit when I'm delivering canapés or adjusting place cards. Because I don't want to fall for someone whose life is airports and boardrooms and people who don't spill things." He stopped in front of her. "You think I care about any of that? You should," she said, voice cracking. "Because it's not going away," he exhaled slowly. "I don't want it to, I want you, exactly as you are," she swallowed hard. "You don't know me, then let me," she stepped back. "You don't understand. This wasn't supposed to be my story. I came here to help someone else start their life, not to get lost in someone else's." He reached out and gently took her hand. "You're not lost. You're just at the beginning." She looked down at their joined hands, then up at him. "What happens when this ends?" "It doesn't have to," she pulled away. "You say that now." "Harlow," he said, his voice rougher now, "I don't do this. I don't chase women. I don't stay after weddings, but I'm here for you." She shook her head. "I can't be a distraction from your world." "I won't." "You're not a distraction," he said. "You're the first real thing I've felt in years." She drew in a sharp breath. "Let me show you," he said. "Come to New York." Her eyes widened. "What?" "Just for a few days. No pressure, no promises. I'll fly you out. You can stay at the penthouse or a hotel if you'd rather. See my life. Then decide." She stared at him, stunned. "I'm not asking you to change," he added. "I'm asking you to see that maybe this doesn't have to be impossible." She didn't answer right away. Her head was spinning. But beneath the fear, something else stirred. Curiosity, hope. "I need a day," she said finally. He nodded. "Take 2. I'll be in the city either way, but I hope you come." That night she lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Her phone buzzed once on the nightstand. A message from Quinn popped up. No text, just a photo. It was of the tent being taken down that morning. Vance was standing off to the side, holding a stack of chairs, laughing with one of the caterers. He looked grounded, present. Exactly the opposite of what she imagined when she thought of private jets and 10-figure portfolios. She set the phone down, closed her eyes, and for once, allowed herself to imagine what it might be like to say yes. The Manhattan skyline looked like something out of a dream, sharp, glittering silhouettes against a sky dusted with evening gold. Harlow sat in the back seat of a sleek, black car as it glided through the city. She hadn't packed much, just a carry-on and a cautious heart. But when she'd stepped onto the plane that morning, her pulse had surged with something between fear and wonder. Now, as the car turned onto a quiet street in Tribeca, she pressed her fingertips against the window. The building they stopped in front of was more sculpture than structure, glass and steel rising with cool authority above the old cobblestone street. A doorman opened her door before she'd even reached the handle. She stepped out, heart thudding. Vance was already waiting in the lobby. His expression was unreadable as he crossed the polished floor to meet her, but the way his eyes held hers said enough. "You came," he said, voice low. "I wasn't sure I would," she replied. "Until I realized I wouldn't be able to stop wondering if I didn't." He gave a small nod, then led her into the elevator. Neither of them spoke as the floor numbers ticked upward, tension thick between them, not awkward, but full of unspoken things. When the doors opened, the view hit her first. The penthouse stretched out before her like a private observatory, wrapped on all sides by floor-to-ceiling windows. The city spilled out in every direction, rivers of lights, towers of glass, a world that didn't sleep. Inside, everything was warm wood and clean lines. No opulence for opulence's sake, just quiet, deliberate beauty. She stepped forward slowly. "You live here?" she asked, a little breathless. "I sleep here," he corrected. "Living is harder to define." She turned to him then. "So define it now." He studied her for a beat, then walked toward a wine cabinet tucked near the far window. "Red or white?" "White." He poured 2 glasses, then handed her one and motioned to the couch. She sat, legs tucked beneath her, gaze flickering to the skyline again. "You built a world people dream about," she said, "and yet you look like you barely notice it's here." He leaned back, elbow draped over the edge of the couch. "That's the problem with building castles. Eventually, you forget how to open the drawbridge." She sipped her wine. "And I'm what, a battering ram?" "No," he said, eyes fixed on her. "You're the reason I want to open it again." The silence that followed wasn't empty, it vibrated with the weight of everything neither of them had said yet. "I didn't come here to be impressed," she said carefully. "I came here to see if what I felt was real, if you were." "I want you to see all of it," he said. "Not just the penthouse, not just the skyline. Tomorrow, come with me to Brooklyn, meet my sister. She's the only family I still talk to. She runs a nonprofit for kids who have aged out of foster care." Harlow's brows lifted. "You've never mentioned her." "She doesn't like being mentioned," he said with a faint smile, "but she'll like you." "And you're sure about that?" "She has a better sense of people than I do. If she doesn't like someone, I listen. And if she doesn't like me, I won't need her to tell me, I'm already sure." The next day was nothing like she expected. They took the subway, no driver, no tinted windows. Vance wore jeans and a plain gray sweater, and no one gave him a second glance. His sister's nonprofit was tucked between a boxing gym and a bakery that smelled like cinnamon and flour. Inside, kids lounged on beanbags, working on laptops and sketch pads. A teen with pink braids greeted Vance with a high five and a knowing grin. "You never bring anyone here," she said, eyeing Harlow. "This is Harlow," he replied. "Be nice." "I'm always nice," she said, then turned to Harlow. "You're prettier than I expected," Harlow laughed. "I'll take that as a compliment." Later, they met his sister in a sunlit back room where she was sorting donations. She wore overalls and sneakers, her hair in a tight bun, no nonsense in every movement. "You're late," she said without looking up. "Traffic," Vance said. "You took the train." "A slow train then." She finally looked up. "So you're the one what? The one who's making him act like a human again." Harlow flushed. "I don't know about that." "Well, I do," she said, then handed her a crate. "Come on. You can help me move these." They worked side by side for an hour, filling shelves with books and art supplies. His sister didn't ask about money or status. She asked about Harlow's favorite childhood book, whether she liked thunderstorms, if she'd ever learned to fix a leaky faucet. By the time they left, Harlow's cheeks hurt from smiling. In the car back to Manhattan, Vance glanced at her. "Well, she's terrifying," Harlow said, "but I like her." "She likes you too. It's why she only made you move 1 crate of encyclopedias." That night back at the penthouse, he cooked. Nothing fancy, just pasta with garlic and olive oil, a salad with too much lemon. They ate at the long wood table near the window, the city glowing beneath them like a living thing. "I think I was scared of you," she said as they finished. He looked up. "Why?" "Because you're the kind of man who could make someone forget what they thought they wanted." "And what did you think you wanted?" "Safety, control, a plan." He leaned forward. And now she met his gaze. "Now I just want something real." He stood then, walked around the table and gently pulled her to her feet. "Then let's make it real." There was no music, no lights dimmed. He kissed her in the middle of the penthouse with the city watching, and it felt like exhaling after years of holding her breath. Weeks passed like chapters in a story that finally made sense. She didn't move and not yet. But she stayed, helped his sister with a fundraiser. Took walks with him through the park when the leaves began to change. They fought once over nothing, then made up over coffee and apologies that meant more than either expected. And then, one morning, he handed her a small black box. She froze. "Vance, it's not what you think," he said, his voice steady. "Open it." Inside was a silver key to the penthouse, he said. "To everything." She looked up, heart full. "Are you sure?" "I've never been more." She took the key, and this time she didn't hesitate. Harlow stood in front of the mirror in Vance's walk-in closet, barefoot, her hair still damp from the shower. She wore one of his button-down shirts, sleeves rolled to her elbows, the hem brushing her bare thighs. The key rested on the dresser beside her, its weight still a quiet promise. Outside, the city buzzed with its usual rhythm, but inside the penthouse, everything felt suspended as if time had slowed to let her catch up to the life she hadn't meant to find. Vance appeared in the doorway, tie undone, sleeves pushed up. He held a folder in one hand, a look of cautious anticipation in the other. "I have something for you." She turned, brow raised. "If it's another key, I might start thinking you're trying to turn me into a locksmith." He grinned and handed her the folder. "Just open it." Inside were 6 crisp design mock-ups. Elegant lines, muted tones, business cards with her name, a logo, a website layout. She blinked. "Harlow Avery Events. You said you wanted something that was yours," he said, "so I called in a few favors. My branding team owed me after the mess they made with the Monaco acquisition." Her fingers brushed the edge of the paper. "You built me a company." "No," he said. "I built you a starting line. What you do with it, that's all you." She looked up at him, stunned. "Vance, this isn't a gift, this is a life." "I know," his voice softened, "because I want to build it with you." Her throat tightened. She set the folder down and walked over to him, resting her hands on his chest. "I didn't expect any of this," she murmured. "You weren't supposed to," he said. "That's the point." The next few weeks blurred into something extraordinary. They found a small studio space in Soho, sunlight-drenched and slightly imperfect, with creaky floors and a view of the fire escape vines. Harlow threw herself into planning her first solo event, a 75th birthday gala for a retired Broadway producer who insisted on a champagne fountain and 20 doves. Vance, true to his word, never hovered. He showed up when asked, disappeared when she needed space, and listened without offering solutions unless she wanted them. His work remained demanding, but now it existed beside her life, not over it. One Sunday afternoon, she came home to find him in the kitchen, sleeves rolled, a pan of something bubbling on the stove. He was barefoot, music playing softly from the wall speakers, something jazzy and old. "You're cooking," she said, setting her bag on the counter. "I'm attempting to," he replied. "You're late. I stopped to grab pastries from that place you love on Bleecker. I take back my tone." She crossed the room and leaned against the counter. "You seem different," he glanced at her. "How so?" "Lighter, less guarded." He stirred something in the pan. "You're very observant." She reached out and touched his wrist. "You're allowed to be happy, you know." He turned to her then. "I am." That night, after dinner and a movie they didn't finish because kissing had proved far more interesting, they lay in bed with the windows open and the city humming below. "I never asked," Harlow whispered, head on his chest. "Why me?" He ran his fingers lazily through her hair. "Because when everything else felt manufactured, you were real. You didn't flinch when I told you who I was. You dropped a cake on me and didn't apologize for a week. You never once asked me for anything, and I wanted to give you everything." She closed her eyes. "I love you." His arms wrapped tighter around her. "I love you more than I ever thought I could love anything." Months passed. The business took off faster than she anticipated. Her third event made it into a lifestyle magazine. By spring, she had a tiny staff, a waiting list, and a feature scheduled with a major wedding blog. They traveled when they could, Lisbon for a weekend, Aspen for a friend's engagement. But home was always New York, always the penthouse. One quiet evening, as they stood on the rooftop garden, Vance had commissioned just for her a surprise he unveiled with a bottle of wine and a grin that made her knees weak. He took her hands in his. "I know you said you didn't want a fairy tale," he said. "But I think we wrote one anyway," she laughed. "It's a very modern one with a lot of espresso and spreadsheets, and no dragons, unless you count my board of directors." She looked up at him, the city glowing behind his silhouette. "Marry me," he said. She froze, breath catching. "I'm not asking you to change anything," he continued. "Not your name, not your business, not the way you roll your eyes when I leave socks on the floor. I just want to spend the rest of my life loving you in all the ways you never saw coming." She didn't hesitate. "Yes." The wedding was small, held in the same vineyard where they first met, just family, close friends, and enough laughter to fill the valley. Vance wore a charcoal suit. Harlow wore a dress with pockets. Her cousin Quinn cried through most of the ceremony and gave a toast that made everyone laugh, and then cry again. At the reception, under a canopy of golden lights, Vance pulled her into a slow dance as the music drifted through the warm night air. "Remember when you said this wasn't your story," he whispered. She rested her head on his shoulder. "I was very wrong. You were right about one thing. Oh, it's ours now." They danced, wrapped in each other, surrounded by the people who mattered, by stars and memories, and the kind of love that didn't need proving it, just needed living. Their life was never perfect. There were missed flights and overbooked weekends, arguments over lamp choices and vacation destinations. But there was also coffee in bed, long walks in the rain, and 1,000 small moments stitched into a love neither of them had seen coming. And they never once looked back.